would that change anything to do with this license? If the premise changes, no? Okay, that's all.
Any other discussion?
Is there anything you want to add? Leave
We have-
anything out?
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Thank you for staying. Good luck.
Okay, we'll move back up to 8A, Community Development Authority, consideration of proposed amendment to General Capital Group Developer Agreement for commercial properties 4075 and 4115 North Oakland Avenue. I'll turn this over to those managers to start off, and you introduce whoever you want.
I will introduce our CDA chair, Peter.
Hello, everybody. So you have in your packet the supplement to the developer's agreement. So Michael Weiss is here. There's a potential transaction to sell the grocery store in the parking lot. The nature of the sale is a transfer of interest in the LLC. So obviously the new owner wants to understand what their obligations are, that certain obligations have been fulfilled. I think that, and again, Bruce Block is here as well. I'll turn it over to them because they are definitely more expert in this than I am, but really the requirement is that we provide an estoppel guarantee, which again basically tells the new owner certain obligations have been fulfilled. There is an opportunity for us to have this supplement the agreement to provide some additional things to the village, one of which is there isn't a need for the new loan, so we can remove that from the existing agreement. So again, this really is more of an administrative matter. It could move forward just with that estoppel, which again is an administrative, but we're taking the opportunity to, I think, put in some things that we feel benefit the village. So this was adopted by the CDA for recommendation to the village board. So you have, I think, a fair amount of materials in your packet that go through a number of the questions that were asked as an overview of the situation. And I would then just turn it over to you all for any questions, and certainly defer to Michael Weiss or Bruce Block for any expert items.
Bruce is going to do a presentation.
Oh, all right. You're doing the presentation?
Brief.
Brief, all right, brief.
Thank you. I'm Bruce Block, for those who are new, or haven't been here when I've been here before. This project had a lot of years on it. There's a lot of materials distributed, but Peter summarized it pretty well. We have a pending sale for two components of the project that are completed, the grocery store and the parking structure. The development agreement requires the village to provide what's called an estoppel certificate to any potential purchaser that basically says this is the status of the agreement, these are the outstanding defaults, or there are no defaults, but this is the current status of the project. So administratively, the village manager should be doing that if in fact there were not going to be some other items that we can address. The key one is that this purchaser was an all-cash purchaser, and at this time does not require the village loan. So this presents us with an opportunity to basically kill that part of the deal. So we can amend the development agreement to terminate the village loan obligation, specifically state that there are no further financial obligations from the village towards this project, and at the same time provide this type of estoppel assurances that the agreement requires us to provide in any situation anyway. Another nuance of the deal, as Peter described, the purchaser is acquiring the ownership interest in the LLCs as opposed to the fee title to a property in separate entities. We have cross-default sections that defaults of the development agreement that basically cross-defaults all three owners. And so when these developers or these people come in and acquire the LLC interest, technically they are stepping into the shoes of the existing entities and are subject to those cross-defaults. Well, the fact of the matter is that the first two projects are completed. There are very few defaults outstanding. Actually, no way that there could be future defaults except in the side agreements that are already in place, or other agreements that are in the development agreements that will carry forward vis-a-vis those parties. So it makes sense to separate those cross-default provisions and provide that each default as against either parking structure or the grocery store, the village will look to those owners. If there's the risk of speaking any longer than I need to, I'll be happy to respond to any specific questions.
Anybody have questions for Mr. Black?
Hi, Bruce. Welcome. I appreciate it. I got a lot of my questions answered ahead of time, which I'm very appreciative, so I don't have to, ask them all while we're here. I did have one outstanding question. I emailed it to you late, so I just wanted to make sure I understood it before voting. Because we're releasing the developer from the original development agreement when it pertains to the parking and the metro market in some ways, I just wanted to go over the original agreement and see that everything was met. And I think that my outstanding question in regards the requirement that the developer not exceed a 20% IRR, which is a 20% profit. So I sent that language over, and there is other language that talks about reviewing construction costs at the end of, to make sure that these standards, we do it on an estimate basis at the beginning based on bids and contracts. But at the end, typically you look at actuals and then you compare it and make sure that things weren't exceeded. My understanding, and help me through this, is that it appears there was a clear agreement between the developer, our staff, our financial consultants, and trustees that the project had significant risk. Such a significant risk that we put in a lot of public dollars in order to move the project forward for the benefits that it's provided to the community. No, there was financial risk. I mean, isn't that why we put the money in?
No.
No.
No,
Not at all. That's
it
not
wasn't because of the risk. It was,
The money was put in order to make the deal happen. It wasn't because there was so much risk to the deal, it was rather, in fact, the deal just wouldn't have happened otherwise. The rate of return, nobody could make it work because of
the risk relates to the rate. I mean, no developer is going to develop something if the rate of return is under a certain level.
Right, but the risk quotient really related more to your first question, which is the question of whether you reconcile the costs afterwards. And this deal was negotiated up front. The IRR cap of 20% was based upon an analysis of the deal at the time the deal was struck. So this did not have a provision that said if you exceeded that number, that the developer had to rebate some back in order to provide that if it was under that number or if the deal went belly up, that somehow the village was going to put more money into the deal.
Right.
It was basically saying, based on the best set of facts we have at this point in time, we think the numbers make sense as we see them. We've scrubbed the construction numbers, we've scrubbed all the comparables, the pro forma, et cetera, and based upon all the information we have, we think it's a fair deal. And based upon the analysis that was done, and bear in mind, the IRR calculation assumes a sale 10 years out. And so you have to make a best case projection as to what that sale is going to be 10 years out. And based upon all of that, and working with our financial consultants and our construction consultants, concluded that the projections supported an IRR that was less than 20%.
So, but the statement is in there. It says the IRR shall not
Based
exceed.
no, it says it shall not be exceeded at the time that we do the analysis.
I'm not arguing that. I
Okay,
agree with
yeah.
you. Yeah, I totally agree with you. So, but there was a basis for that 20% is all I'm saying. I mean, it must be that there was some basis behind saying and testing for a 20% IRR.
Mhm.
Okay. So my question then is, why did anyone at that time, whether it be our financial consultants or our staff or the board members, did anyone request language that what happens if it does exceed 20%?
Sure, that was one of our
I thought that was in the answer that you received.
I remember reading that in the email.
That was in the answer.
that was part of the negotiations.
And they said no.
Yeah, you can ask Mr. Weiss.
Yeah, right.
But that was one of the knockdown, drag out issues we had. And we went through all the analysis and all the reasons and so forth out there, concluded it's still worth moving forward. But that was definitely requested.
You said you did get the,
I did, I'm only asking one question from the whole list. So just to finish up, my, moving forward, I mean, I feel like I've worked on enough TIF projects where and it's protecting, you're subsidizing the risk but you don't want to privatize all the profit. So usually an IRR is set, and typically there's a clawback clause if it's exceeded at sale. So moving forward on other, whether it's 10 years from now, whether it's 4 years from now, if we do TIF projects, I just want the trustees to understand, keep that in mind, that Mequon just sold their town center. So the developer, they put in money, they required in the development agreement a 12.5% IRR not to exceed. Ours was 20, theirs was 12. And when there was a clawback clause, so if the developer in the end at sale received more than 12.5, the money was put in escrow, and then it was split 50-50 between the public sector and the private sector, the additional profit. We missed out on that this time.
No, well, it wasn't in this deal, it's in the Mandel deal, it's in other deals.
Yeah, so I'm just saying,
Yeah.
we didn't put that clause in here.
Yeah, it was a conscious decision.
He's explained why.
Yeah,
That's
detailed.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, in the future, I just want.
This was a very lengthy process for this redevelopment of the Central District parcel. This was an 8-9 year ongoing situation. There were many, I mean, I understand, but I'm not sure if this is the upper, what do you call it, venue right now for this discussion.
Well, it is, it's just that it was all explained in the letter, and you're asking for, I mean, you know that there's no clawback in this because there was no clawback because of the negotiations in order to make the deal happen.
I would assume this would be the proper time to just state, in the future, we may want to look at doing that.
Oh, I would say
We looked
that
at it
that's,
though.
I would say that 4 deals we've done prior to this all have clawbacks.
They all have that.
And so it's part of the policy that requests that. And
I just know the memo says they're going to be selling for materially significant more
Right.
than we had estimated.
So
I
the
don't know what that number
IRR
is
is
yet.
probably gonna be a lot
A lot more than
than 20%. Right.
yeah,
Is there a way to predict that though? I mean,
And
No,
it's,
but you're
it's
subsidizing
been
the
open a
risk,
year
you
and a
just don't want to
half.
privatize the profit. I mean,
well,
But there wouldn't be a project if there was a class, there
if there
wasn't
was
an
a
option.
clawback clause.
Right, there would be no,
I
we
think
wouldn't
this
have.
developer would walk. But bear in mind, that a lot of the great things that are happening here is a result of the fact that Kroger acquired the
I
deal.
know I read that, yeah.
Yeah, and
I know it's
that was
the
not
upside,
foreseeable.
right?
In
It's the
fact,
upside.
90% of what we were
Successful.
fighting against was in fact what happened if the store went dark 7 years from now.
right.
And that was a lot of the analysis we went through.
I mean, your letter was actually really informative and answered a lot of questions that I've had for a while, so I really appreciate the answers you gave. But, you know, that was one part that confused me when you talked about the downside risk relating to roundies. I mean, and I did do a little research on ratings of roundies, and there really was some question about, I don't know, really question about actual roundies viability, but they were getting their bond ratings downgraded, et cetera. But I guess so if that was really such a downside, if there was such a risk of that, I mean, my understanding was that roundies had a 17-year lease, and that we had to get into this deal, even though some aspects of the deal, such as we couldn't negotiate with the developer a clawback, which normally we would have because we had done, and Mequon has done. So we negotiated this because roundies, because there, and we get no part of the upside because we were protected on the downside. But if there really was that much of a possibility that roundies was going to go dark, then we wouldn't have a 17-year lease in the first place. So that's the part that confuses me.
Yeah, well, bear in mind, it was a more sophisticated analysis. The fact is, sure, that's a great location. And the possibility was that if Roundy's went under, some other grocery store was going to come in. The question was who. And the other thing, you had a two-story store, which was unique in the marketplace. So the expectation was that there might be a hiccup if Roundy's went under, but somebody was going to step in. It was too good a location. The same store sales for that store were just off the charts. So somebody was going to come in and take that. The problem is, they probably would not have paid the rent that Roundy's was going to pay. The one thing that this developer brought to the table that nobody else was able to do was Roundy's was convinced and persuaded to pay up on their rents to actually help defray the cost of the ground lease that they entered into, which is the puzzle that nobody could solve. And so what we had to protect against was not so much that it would go dark and be empty forever, but rather that a successor grocery store would come in and pay closer to market rates as opposed to the above market rates that can be paid by Rounders. And that was what we were testing against. We had great confidence that that store would not go dark and stay dark. It was too good a location. The question was, who was going to come in and at what rates would they be paying?
So when you reference downside risk in your memo, what now you're saying is really the downside risk is the increment between Roundy's above market and market rent.
Yes, and the fact that if it did go dark, you might have 1 year or 2 year period when there could be disruption.
I mean, to me, relative to the profit that the developer in his own entrepreneurship and business sense is making, that downside risk that you're describing does not seem commensurate with the profit that this developer is going to walk out of here. I mean, how long has this project been open? Not even 2 years. So, I mean,
So what-
That's just for the future. You would.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a crystal ball and tell me